Okay, assalamu alaikum. I just had my first anatomy class. It was the first class out of a whole semester, and I took a whole bunch of notes. So what I'm going to do, I'm not expecting any watch time on this, but I'm going to read out loud everything I took notes on and all of the keywords that I wrote down, because I think it's important to verbalize the things that I write. There's a lab and a lecture portion of the class. The lecture is about an hour and 20 minutes, and the lab is 3.5 hours. There was a lot more to take from the lecture because of the fact that you have to read the textbook beforehand, which not many people did, to my surprise. But I did, and I took notes on it. None of my notes are actual notes. It's all just active recall, because that's the only way, that's one of the only ways, proper ways to actually learn is active recall, through regurgitating from your brain the things that you read and not just writing down random information on a piece of paper. So it's all just stuff that's in my own words. So hopefully it helps me, hopefully it helps you. Yeah, let's get started. Bismillah. Textbook notes. 1.1. An overview of anatomy. Anatomy and physiology are almost interchangeable, because you cannot have physiology without having anatomy, and vice versa. Anatomy is also commonly called morphology, which is the science of form. Anatomy often needs to be accompanied by the explanation of a function, because without structure, there's no way you can have a function. 1.1a, subdivisions of anatomy. This one was interesting to me. I never actually thought about these things. Each subdiscipline of anatomy covers the body's structures in different specialized ways. Gross anatomy is the first one. Gross anatomy is the study of the body's structures that can be observed with the naked eye. There are multiple kinds of gross anatomy. The first kind is regional anatomy, which is the study of the body's different structures within specific regions, like the abdomen. The second kind of anatomy is systemic anatomy, which is the study of different structures within the body that relate to serve similar functions. And the third kind of anatomy is surface anatomy, which is the study of landmarks on the surface of the human body that identify different organ systems in the muscular system, like the muscular system. Astaghfirullah. Our next subdivision is microscopic anatomy. What is that normally called? Histology. It's called histology. Microscopic anatomy is the study of structures in the body that can only be seen with a microscope. This includes things like cells, cell pieces, and groups of cells that make up a tissue. This is important because physiological and disease processes happen at this level. Our next subdivision is just an accumulation of other branches of anatomy. So there are other important branches of anatomy. The first branch is pathological anatomy, which is the study of how cells, tissues, and organs are affected by disease, like how they change over time, such as that of like a cancer patient. The second branch is radiographic anatomy, which is a study of internal body structures by way of X-ray imaging and other imaging techniques. The third branch is functional morphology, which is the study of functional properties of body structures and the efficiency of their design. Next we have 1.1b, the hierarchy of structural organization. So this is very important because this is how life is built, and my professor also gave us a really interesting tidbit of information on cells, molecules and cells. She said, okay, well, we have to know that the major difference between molecules and cells is that one is alive and one is not. That's the big major difference, other than how molecules are a building block and cells are a literal living thing that make up other living things. And she said no human has ever been able to create a cell. No human has ever in existence been able to take something non-living and artificially make it living. And scientists also are very unsure as to how cells became. And me personally, alhamdulillah, I can only point that towards divine creation. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the cell, of course. It just makes sense, it just fits. Alhamdulillah. But yeah, I just thought that was very interesting. Anyways, we continue. The human body is basically built from the ground up, starting at the chemical level. The chemical level is composed of atoms, which are building blocks of matter. Atoms come together to form both small molecules and larger macromolecules. The 4 different classes of molecule in the body are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. The macromolecules, made up of many atoms, are the building blocks of structures at the cellular level. The macromolecules also contribute to different cellular processes, such as energy production and catalyzing reactions. Cells are also the smallest living thing in the body. The tissue level is made up of groups of cells and extracellular material that come together to form a specific function. There are only 4 kinds of tissue that are within the human body: epithelial, muscle, nervous, and connective tissue. Complex physiological processes happen at the organ level. An organ is a discrete structure within the human body that is made up of more than one structure. You can think of each organ as a structure that performs a function that no other can perform. Just as, like the kidney can't perform the function of the stomach, and the stomach can't perform the function of a kidney. The organ systems are systems of different organs that work together to form a common purpose. You can think of the cardiovascular system, which consists of the heart and the blood vessels, which move blood throughout the body. All of the organ systems are integumentary, skeletal, muscular, nervous, endocrine, cardiovascular, lymphatic, immune, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive. There's 11 of them. And then lastly, we have the highest level of organization, which is the organismal level. It's the organism. The human being is an organism. 1.1c, units of measurement. Very simple. It's going to pop up more in the keywords, but anatomists use the metric system. They don't use the empirical system like we do here in America, unfortunately. Just kidding. The metric system is so much better. It really is. And the whole world uses it. You have to be familiar with it so you can understand proportions and sizes of all the different body structures. 1.1d. All I had to say, I guess, was most anatomical terms are based off Greek terminology. 1.2. Gross anatomy, an introduction. 1.2a. Regional and directional terms. The anatomical position is a visual reference point of the body, and the terms right and left are used from the body's perspective and not yours. The regional terms of the body are the names of specific body areas. The axial region makes up the head, neck, and trunk. The trunk can be divided further into the thorax, abdomen, and pelvis. The appendicular region of the body consists of the limbs. Standard directional terms are used by people to explain precisely where something is on the body in relation to something else. 1.2b. Oh, sorry. Anatomical position is like this. Just legs apart, head up, forwards, and then your arms have to be like this. Like that. Hands forwards like that. Okay. Body planes and sections. In anatomy, the body is often cut into different sections by a plane. The most frequently used is the sagittal, frontal, and transverse. 1.2c. The human body plan. This one was hard for me because I just learned it. The human body plan is that of most of all of the invertebrates that are on Earth. Tube within a tube body plan. The inner tube extends from the mouth to the anus and includes the respiratory and digestive organs. The outer tube consists of the axial skeleton and associated axial muscles that make up the outer body wall and nervous structures. I don't understand it. to the full extent. I don't expect anybody else to understand it to the full extent. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Bilateral symmetry. The left half of the body is essentially a mirror image of the right half, if you don't take into consideration genetic errors and mutations and stuff like that, or of course amputations, but that's not developmental. Dorsal hollow nerve cord. All vertebrate embryos have a hollow nerve cord running along their back in the median plane. It develops into the brain and the spinal cord. So all embryos have a nerve cord that develops later into the spinal cord and the brain. The notochord and vertebrae. The notochord is a stiffening rod in the back, just as deep as the spinal cord is. A complete notochord forms in the human embryo and is later replaced by vertebrae. Some of the cord exists throughout the rest of your life as the core of the discs between your vertebrae. But it's not the cord itself. What else? Oh, segmentation. This one is kind of obvious. Segmentation is the repeating of segments throughout the body, such as ribs or vertebrae, or the nerves that stem off of your ribs, stuff like that. And then lastly, this is the one I least understand, is pharyngeal pouches, which is I don't know why it had to be mentioned, but it's a trait that is seen in human embryos along with fish. I don't get it, but hopefully I'll get it at some point. 1.2D, body cavities and membranes. This one's super important, but I think it's going to be mostly in the keywords. This cavity contains the cranial and vertebral cavities, which hold the brain and enclose the spinal cord. The dorsal body cavity. It holds the brain and the spinal cord. The ventral body cavity. This cavity contains what are called the visceral organs, such as the heart, the lungs, the intestines, or the kidneys. This is split into two divisions, the superior thoracic cavity and the inferior abdominal pelvic cavity. These two are separated from each other by way of the diaphragm. The thoracic cavity has three parts, two lateral parts and one central part. The two lateral parts are called the pleural cavity, and they hold each lung. The medial part is called the mediastinum, which actually I was incorrect about. There's 4 parts. No. Oh, okay, so the mediastinum, it holds the heart, okay? But it also holds thyroids. It holds your trachea and your esophagus, stuff like that. And specifically, the heart is held by this thing called the pericardium. In EMS, we oftentimes find patients with pericardial tamponade, which is blood filling the sac that holds the heart. That's what the pericardium is. But the pericardium is located within the mediastinum, along with those other organs, like the esophagus and the trachea. What else? Okay, yeah. Here it says this. The two lateral parts are called the pleural cavity, which hold the lung, and the medial part is called the mediastinum, and it holds the heart contained in the pericardial cavity, as well as other major thoracic organs like the trachea and the windpipe. That's wrong as well, because the trachea is the windpipe. I think I meant to say trachea and esophagus. The abdominal pelvic cavity is separated into 2 parts as well. The inferior part is the pelvic cavity, which holds the urinary system and most of the reproductive organs, while the superior part is where the liver, kidneys, stomach, and other organs are held and contained in the peritoneal cavity. In EMS, we often find patients with peritonitis, which is inflammation of the peritoneal cavity. Serous cavities. It's just a slit lined with serous fluid, and it didn't say it in the book, surprisingly, but in class it was reinforced that in order to have serous cavities, you have to have 2 membranes. And let's take the lung is a big one. Let's take the lung, for example. I'm explaining this off memory. The lung needs to expand, and it needs to also contract in a way. or release pressure. And the way it does that, if you didn't have serious cavities, the lung would expand and there would be an immense amount of friction between the lung and the chest wall. So what these serious cavities do is there's two membranes. There's one membrane called the visceral membrane, visceral meaning on the inside, closer to the organ, lining the lung. So you have the visceral membrane on the lung, and then you have what's called the parietal membrane on the chest wall. That's on the outside. And in between that is your serous cavity filled with serous fluid. It's a very, very thin amount of fluid, but it's just enough for those two membranes to be able to slide back and forth. So when the chest wall expands and ultimately the lung expands, the two walls don't have as much friction. It's a very slippery, serous fluid is very slippery. So always remember that visceral is the inside membrane and parietal is the outside membrane, and they disallow friction. 1.2e, abdominal quadrants. Go to keywords. Great. 1.3, microscopic anatomy, an introduction. This is the boring stuff. Actually, I'm not even totally sure if this is worth going over. Yeah, I'm not going over this. 16 minutes, oh my gosh. Anatomy, the study of the structure of the human body. Morphology, the science of form. Anatomy and morphology are almost interchangeable, basically the same thing. Physiology, the study of body function. Without anatomy, you cannot have physiology. Gross anatomy is the study of the body structures that can be observed with the naked eye. Dissection is removing connective tissue in order to see the organs more clearly, or cutting open the organs themselves to understand the structure. Regional anatomy, all of the structures within a specific region of the human body, like the head, or the abdomen, or the chest. Systemic anatomy, all of the organs with related functions that are studied together. The muscular system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, things like that. Surface anatomy is the study of shapes and markings on the surface of the human body that point to and relate to different systems within the human body, such as muscle structure or bone structure. Microscopic anatomy, aka histology, I went over that earlier, is the study of structures that are so small that they can only be seen with a microscope. Developmental anatomy. Developmental anatomy traces the structural changes that occur in the body and that occur throughout its lifespan, as well as the effects of aging. Embryology. Embryology is the study of how the body forms and develops before birth. Pathological anatomy is the structural changes in cells, tissues, and organs due to disease. Pathology is the study of disease. Radiologic anatomy is the study of the internal body structure using an X-ray and other imaging techniques. Functional morphology is the study of functional properties of the body structures and assesses the efficiency of their design, which is very interesting to me. It introduces a very interesting aspect of critical thinking into anatomy, which I like. Chemical level. At the chemical level is atoms, which are the building blocks of matter. The cellular level. At the cellular level is cells, of course, which are made up of organelles, which are made up of molecules and macromolecules. Tissue level. The tissue is a group of cells and extracellular material that come together to form a specific function. The organ level, a discrete structure made of more than one kind of tissue that carries out a specific function, such as epithelial tissue and some other tissue like muscle tissue. An organ system, organs that work together closely to accomplish common functions. Organismal level is the result of all the different systems working together to create life. A meter, it's a little bit longer than a yardstick. A centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. A micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. A liter is a measurement of volume. A milliliter is 1,000,000th of a liter. So monotonous. A kilogram is a unit of weight equal to 2.2 pounds. A gram is 1,000th of a kilogram. Anatomical position is a visual reference point of the human body. I already showed you anatomical position. Superior or cranial is closer to the head. I don't think... Oh, maybe we... What the heck? I don't think we went over that. I don't think I talked about that. Where is that? I never explained. Huh. I guess I never explained directional terms. Okay. Superior is closer to the head. Inferior or caudal is closer to the feet. Medial is closer to the midline, split in half. Lateral is closer to the outside. Proximal and distal are in relation to limbs. So if you have proximal, then you... Hello?
Do you have a second?
Yeah. Sorry, my mom came in. This jut is falling off. Okay. Proximal and distal is in relation to where the limbs connect to the body. So if I have... Let's talk about my arm. My antecubital space right here is proximal to my wrist, okay? That means it's closer to the end attachment point of my arm than my wrist is. That would mean that vice versa, my wrist is distal to my antecubital space. Anyways, ipsilateral and contralateral. Ipsilateral is two things on the exact same side, such as my right hand and my right foot would be ipsilateral. Contralateral would be my right hand and my left foot. Anterior or ventral is the front of my body, and posterior or dorsal is the back of my body. Superficial is closer to the body surface, and deep is farther from the body surface. Regional terms. The names of specific body areas. So you would have the pelvic region, or the abdominal region, or the antecubital region, the popliteal region, stuff like that. The axial region. We're just going to go through all the regions. This makes up the main axis of the body. Appendicular region. Axial is the head, the neck, and the trunk, which is your chest and your abdominal cavity. The appendicular region consists of the limbs. Okay, so that's my arms and my legs. That's it. And then sagittal plane, so the body's split into planes. I keep forgetting that I put a bunch of this stuff in my keywords just to remember it, but there's different planes. There's the sagittal plane, which divides the body between right and left. You can have mid-sagittal, which is perfectly in the middle, or you can have parasagittal, which divides the body into uneven right and left halves. The median plane, oh my god, that's splitting the body directly in the middle. Frontal or coronal plane splits the body between front and back. Transverse splits the body between superior and inferior. An oblique section is a cut in the body, like a separation in the body that does not abide by sagittal, transverse, or frontal at all. It's its own plane, which can happen, but it's not really talked about. The dorsal or hollow nerve cord. All vertebrate embryos have a hollow nerve cord running along their backs. It develops into a spinal cord and brain. The notochord in vertebrae, again, a stiffening rod in the spine that is quickly replaced by the vertebrae in development. Segmentation is repeating segments within the human body, like the ribs or branching nerves. Pharyngeal pouches. Human embryos have a throat pouch that is present as well in fish. I don't know what that means. I couldn't even in class, I could not even comprehend. Like, I don't even I don't even know what it wants me to know about that. It's just weird. The throat region. Though the pharynx is the throat region of the digestive and respiratory tube. The dorsal body cavity consists of the cranial and vertebral cavity. The cranial cavity holds the brain. The vertebral cavity holds the spinal cord. The ventral body cavity consists of the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. Visceral organs, organs that are within the ventral body cavity. Thoracic cavity holds the heart and lungs. Abdominopelvic cavity holds the stomach, liver, kidneys, and other organs. The pleural cavity holds the lungs. The mediastinum holds the heart as well as the other organs within it. I'm too tired to go through it again. Pericardial cavity, the sac in the mediastinal space that the heart is contained within. Oh, by the way, the pericardium is just like the lungs. The pericardium is it's two membranes with serous fluid in between. The abdominal cavity holds the stomach, liver, kidneys, and other organs. The pelvic cavity holds the urinary and excretory organs as well as some of the reproductive organs. The peritoneal cavity is the lining that encases most of the abdominal organs. The serous membrane is a slit-like space lined by serous membrane. The pleura, the serous lining of the lungs. Pericardium, the serous lining of the heart. The peritoneum, the serous lining of the abdominal cavity. Interesting, very important, the parietal serosa, it's the outside membrane, okay? The visceral serosa is the inside membrane attached to the organ. Oh yeah, the serous fluid, slippery fluid between the parietal and visceral serosa, it allows the two to slide past each other. Important, the abdominal quadrants. The right upper quadrant contains the spleen, stomach, part of the liver, part of the transverse colon. The left upper quadrant contains the liver, gallbladder, part of the stomach, part of the transverse colon. The right lower quadrant contains the ascending colon, small intestine, cecum, and the appendix. The left lower quadrant contains the descending colon, part of the sigmoid colon, and the urinary bladder. Microscopy is the examination of small structures with a microscope. Transmission electron microscope uses electron beams of much smaller wavelength to produce sharp images at much greater magnification. Light microscope illuminates a specimen and then you look at it through a lens. Wow. Fixed or fixing is preserving the slide. Sections. You have to cut the specimen to thin slices. Stained. The specimen must be stained to enhance the visual contrast. Acidic stains are positively charged stains that connect and bind to negatively charged objects. Basic stains are negatively charged stains that attract and bind to positively charged objects. Scanning electron microscopy provides 3D images of unsectioned surfaces with much clarity. Artifacts, distortions in a specimen due to preserving. Contrast medium, a liquid containing heavy metal like barium that is injected or ingested into a soft organ for better imaging. Computed tomography, or CT, a computer that takes 12 successive small X-rays around a person's body. Computed axial tomography, the same exact thing. Angiography, the imaging of the blood vessel. Digital subtraction angiography, it's where there's a before and after image taken of the blood vessel in order to subtract all of the parts that weren't the vessel, just so you see the vessel itself. Positron emission tomography, this one scared me a little bit just reading it. A procedure that produces images by detecting radioactive isotopes that are injected into the body. Sonography, ultrasound imaging. This one is not scary. A method that uses high-frequency sound to view soft tissue. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI. a technique that uses strong magnets to detect the amount of hydrogen atoms in a given place in the body. Oh my gosh, we're done. We finished. We're done. Alhamdulillah. Now it's time to take a quiz.